Well, the Marshall BluesBreaker reissue is finally here, and I thought it would be fitting to kind of cap off my coverage of the release of this pedal and actually discuss the details of the official release now that it's out, and some actual locations of where you guys can buy the pedal still as of right now, recording this video the morning of release. So if you're a John Mayer fan and you haven't gotten a BluesBreaker style pedal yet, this pedal is definitely going to be one you're going to want to consider. If you're a fan of the Continuum era, the Continuum tones, where the light is, this Marshall BluesBreaker sound is a key component of all of that. So let's get into today's video. Again, we're going to cover the release, some details from Marshall, and I'm going to give you guys some different places you can actually purchase this pedal today. Now, if you haven't seen the first two videos I did discussing this pedal and the circuitry behind it and why it's going to be so exciting specifically for John Mayer fans, they'll be linked in the description down below, so go and check them out. But essentially the gist is that with the Mark I BluesBreaker, there were two different circuit versions. The earliest version, the V1.1, if you want to call it that, for example, that actually has less gain, less output, and a different EQ compared to the later versions. Now, circuitry-wise, we can tell the difference between the V1 and the V2 versions because of two different resistors. Now, we know John Mayer used the earliest version of the Marshall BluesBreaker the entire time because of shots of his settings. Now, the earliest version of the Marshall BluesBreaker, in order to get really anything out of it, you needed to essentially crank all three of the knobs to around 3 o'clock or sometimes even higher. Now, John's settings were all like that, and remember again, you guys, I mentioned this in both videos, but this is the bass sound for Gravity.
If you don't mind, turn the volume on the BluesBreaker up like a pinch.
You're not getting a ton of gain, you're not getting a ton of push from the volume as well from the pedal, but it's just that sweet addition to your tone that really just kind of elevates it, adds some dynamics, and that's really what the BluesBreaker does. Of course, stacking it with the Tube Screamer as well really gets you a nice lead sound and kind of does that John Mayer Continuum lead tone. And thanks to some people who actually got these pedals early in hand and released photos of the circuitry, we actually could tell that the two resistors were in fact the ones that were needed in order for the pedal to be a Mark I version 1. Now again, this is huge because based on the settings, we know that that's what John is using. If he was using the later V2 version, his tone would be a lot more aggressive, there would be a lot more gain, a lot more of a volume jump. It just would sound completely different if he had all three of his knobs at around that 3 o'clock point. So that's how we just know that he was using the earliest version, which is what the reissue pedal is. Now, of course, so today the pedal officially released. I'm just on Marshall's website right now, and what's really cool is that they actually released all 4 of the original Marshall pedals. You have the BluesBreaker, of course, the Drive Master, the Shred Master, and the Governor. Now, for John Mayer fans, which is mainly what I target on this channel here, we're really only concerned with the Marshall BluesBreaker. So if we click on this here, it talks about, the sound of the 1962 BluesBreaker amplifier being such a legend, and essentially this pedal was inspired by that amplifier. Of course, we know it's a bit of a different thing. It's not just that amp in a box kind of thing. They include some really great shots of the pedal as well, and they talk about it all having the same character. This classic low-gain drive pedal brings your music to life by combining vintage organic drive with natural color and warmth. The BluesBreaker gives you earlier breakup and makes your solos tower above the noise. Inspired by the amp used by legendary Eric Clapton, the BluesBreaker pedal masters bluesy lead sounds with the bags of clarity and sparkle. Rooted in history, it says, these pedals have been seen on countless stages since first being introduced in 1992 and are now collector's pieces and heavily sought after, which we know the prices on Reverb are absolutely absurd for the original versions. This faithful reissue is meticulously designed and hand-built at our famous Belchley factory. I probably pronounced that wrong. But yeah, look at that. Hand-built using the exact same enclosure, exact same knobs, exact same PCB layout even. It's insane the level of detail they went in order to getting this pedal right, and they did, again, do the original circuit, which is just fantastic. Alright, now with the release of this pedal covered, let's actually discuss where you can get your hands on one of these, and kind of forewarning here, it's going to be a little bit difficult. From what I have heard from kind of insider people at least, it seems like Marshall did an initial release batch of this pedal, and more are going to be coming very, very soon, but this initial batch is starting to sell it everywhere, so I'm just trying to give you guys at this time at least, still the morning of the release at the time of recording this video, the best kind of options that I can for where you can get your hands on these as soon as possible. So the first option I'm going to recommend for you guys is Chicago Music Exchange. My really good friend Ryan actually works there, and if you guys email him at ryan@chicagomusicexchange.com, his email is going to be in the description as well. Although Chicago Music Exchange says sold out right now, they are getting more in very soon, so if you email him, he can put you on a waiting list, hopefully to get one of these pedals early, and Chicago Music Exchange does ship globally. Now, another really great option, especially if you're in the United States, is always SweetWater. And if you go the SweetWater route, I highly recommend using Tad Schaefer as a sales engineer from SweetWater. He's who I personally use when I shop through SweetWater. His email as well is going to be in the description down below to contact him about ordering one of these as well. It's tad_Schaefer@sweetwater.com. And on their site right now, it's showing pre-ordering, saying hot new item, coming soon, reserve your order now. So if you guys are wanting to go the SweetWater route, contact Tad for this pedal. And if you're in Canada like me, perhaps you want to just stick to buying more locally. Now, Long McQuade actually has the pedal listed online, and it still says it is in stock through Long McQuade in Canada. Obviously not the best option if you're from the United States buying from Long McQuade, but for you Canadians out there, Long McQuade does have some in stock. I'll link that as well in the description down below. This one's priced at $299 Canadian on their website. It doesn't look like they actually have any stock in any stores. It's just online inventory as of right now. Now, one thing I should quickly mention about the Long McQuade listing is that it mentions it's a limited edition reissue pedal. I don't believe that that is actually accurate. I think Long McQuade has kind of messed up their wording on this. I think it might be a limited edition first batch that they've done for release, but as far as I can tell from, again, kind of chatting with people, more are coming. So don't buy into necessarily it being a limited edition is what I would say. There's nowhere else on Marshall's website, on Andertons, which we're going to talk about in a second here, SweetWater, Chicago Music Exchange, none of those places listed as limited edition, only Long McQuade. So I'm not sure I buy into that at all. And of course, if you're in Europe, I always like to recommend Andertons. Just, Pete and Lee, they do really fantastic work on YouTube, and I just always really like supporting them whenever I can. I've even ordered some products from them in the past just to help support those guys, just because, I think they do really great work for the guitar community, and Andertons is a great shop. If I'm ever back in London, I've been fortunately once before, I definitely want to go back and actually visit Andertons in person. But they actually, number one, they've done a video on all of these new pedals, which I'm sure you probably have watched at this point. I'll link that down below as well. But they're also taking pre-orders right now for £169 on Andertons. So if you're in Europe, that's a really great place to go to and purchase from. One thing I will say is on Andertons' description of it, they actually say exact same circuitry and components as the original stop box, apart from the pots and jack sockets. So right from Andertons, they're actually saying that the pots and the jack sockets have been changed, which again was really the only issue with this pedal. So well done, Marshall. Well done on actually changing that part, because that was the one thing that was just kind of like, oh, if they're the original design for those, it's probably not going to be as reliable as you want it to be, but the fact that they've changed that is huge news. So yeah, Marshall, you nailed this thing. Great job. So yeah, they actually have stated that that's fixed. So really great, and only information you can find at Andertons. Again, that's why I love Pete and Lee and the guys at Andertons. They get you the information that you really want like that there. So Andertons link and all the other links as well will be linked in the description down below for you guys. Hopefully you can get a pre-order and get your hands on one of these very, very soon. Go check out Andertons' video as well. All right, now I want to discuss the price lastly here for you guys. So in American dollars, which is what we're going to discuss, it's $249.99, $250. Now, is that a little bit more expensive than maybe we were anticipating? Yes. Looking, for example, at the Carbon from Brown Amplification, it's $219 US. Would I buy the original Marshall reissue over the Brown Amplification Carbon and save some money? I don't know. I haven't played the Carbon. I used to own an original Mark I BluesBreaker, and it's a very special circuit and does that sound. But a company like Brown Amplification, just using this as just one example, it's tempting at a cheaper price point, for sure. So I don't think I feel like Marshall could have probably charged more for this pedal and still sold just as many, but at the same time, I feel like they could have charged less for it as well. So that's one thing to consider. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be commenting, well, what about the Snouse Black Box? Listen, the Snouse Black Box is phenomenal. It's a just meticulous recreation of that circuit. It's one of the best BluesBreaker style pedals out there. The wait time is 2 years. That is not a viable option at all. The Snouse Black Box at this point should just not be part of the conversation. I'm sorry to Snouse for saying that, but it's true. If it's got a 2-year wait, you know, why would you pre-order one and wait when you can go out and buy this reissue, you know, get it probably within a few weeks, buy a Carbon right now today, buy a JHS Morning Glory today? I just don't see that pedal as really a viable option anymore for fans of the BluesBreaker. If you want to pre-order one and get something else for now and then shoot them out 2 years from now, knock yourself out, I guess, but it's not viable. So the Snouse Black Box should not be really in this conversation anymore. And when I made the past 2 videos or even just discussions in forums, I've seen it being, you know, discussed a lot and thrown around being like, well, just get a Snouse Black Box. Well, yeah, you could if we could, we would.
Wish I could, but I can't. Well, can, but won't. Should, maybe, but shan't.
So, you know, it's not viable. Don't even bring that pedal up as far as I'm concerned, because 2 years is just, it's pointless at this point. But pedals like the Morning Glory, JHS, always love to support Josh Scott. That's a great pedal. The Carbon, I've never played the Carbon, but knowing Brown amplification, the Protein is really great, and this is that BluesBreaker side of the Protein, so I think this would be a great option. In a bit better of a form factor as well, these other pedals are compared to the original BluesBreaker, but if you want the original vibe of the pedal, kind of, you know, the people who originally designed it as well, and the truest kind of circuitry to Mayer's, for example, go with the Marshall one is what I'd say. If you don't really care about having that vibe of the original and, you know, you want what actually is probably an improvement on the circuit, then I'd go for something like the Morning Glory and the Carbon. But there's just different options for, you know, what you're interested in and what you kind of are looking for. So that's going to conclude today's video for you guys. Hopefully you liked it. If you've enjoyed my coverage of the Marshall BluesBreaker and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I greatly appreciate you guys subscribing to my YouTube channel. Lets me know I'm doing a great job and just helps my channel grow as well. And if you did like the video, as always, please make sure you give it a thumbs up as well. That just helps, again, helps the channel, helps the algorithm. You know, I'm you know, just all hail the algorithm, as people say. So, you know, all that stuff just really helps me out. And let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking up one of these Marshall BluesBreaker Reissues, if you got lucky and already did pick one up. I know some people I know have actually gotten them in hand, which is crazy, from the original release from Tommen, I believe, was in Europe, who initially had the original one. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on this pedal in the comments down below if you're picking one of these up, if you're going to pick a different one up. But the BluesBreaker style pedal for John Mayer fans, especially fans of the Continuum era where the light is, a BluesBreaker style pedal in general is a must-have. So whether it's this one, the Morning Glory, the Carbon, you already have a Snouse, you know, it's a pedal you probably would want to have in your collection. So exciting times, you know, to see Marshall release this pedal regardless. And again, props to them for making such a faithful reissue, but fixing the pots and the jack switches, you know, that's fantastic to see. So a win-win for all of us. So until the next time, you guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.